is Appetite for Distortion.
And welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode 240. My name is Brando, the very first episode of 2021. Will there be new Guns N' Roses music this year? I have no idea. We'll find out one way or another. But when this podcast continues, this 6 degrees of Guns N' Roses bacon, Guns N' Roses GNR themed bar mitzvah party of a broadcast continues. And this first episode is going to be a fun one. Coming up in a few moments, Marc Ford, former Black Crowes, almost in Guns N' Roses for a moment. You, I'm sure, may have heard the story when he joined the Black Crowes. I think it was a couple days later. Slash asked him to join GNR when Izzy left. That story's been told, but let's do some reflection in the year 2021. How does he feel about it now? And we're going to speak with Marc Ford, and I say we because I want to have a little companionship. I want to co-host as I welcome on Marc Ford. So joining me today as my official special co-host is not a stranger to the program. You've read his work on AL.com, Spin, Rolling Stone, Guitar World. Journalist, my journalist friend from Alabama. Happy New Year, Matt Wake. What's going on, Mr. Matthew?
Yo, Brando. Thanks for having me, man. Good to hear your voice. Good to be here.
Likewise. And we're going to get into what you have planned for us in 2021 as far as your articles, which are always so well received. And it's I'm just really excited to see where you are going with this. But I know we're both here because we're both you more so. I'm going to admit that. You're more of a, so otherwise I'd be doing a Black Crowes podcast, but you know more about the legacy of the Black Crowes. So I'm really excited for you to join me today for the conversation with Marc Ford. And then after we speak with Marc, we're gonna talk about Matt Wake a little bit.
Excited to talk to Marc Ford, a very special guitar player and musician that made a good band, the Black Crowes, great during his run with them. And he's done some cool solo stuff and has some other stuff in his history, whether guesting on the Juju Hounds album, and he's got a new live album coming up. So should be awesome.
Sure. And as always, we'll pick his brain. We'll connect the dots through GNR Bacon, as we do here on the AFD show. And I believe he's calling in now.
Awesome.
Hi, is this Marc?
Yep.
Hey, Marc, this is Brandon with Appetite for Distortion. How are you?
How you doing?
I'm doing well. Man, remind me, we were just talking a little bit before, of course, Marc hopped on. When you did that interview or that article for AL.com years ago talking about Magpie Salute, did you interviewed Marc Ford back in the day, or just because I know you're obviously why I have you here, you're a huge Black Crowes fan.
Yeah, that was actually for LA Weekly.
Oh, okay.
Marc and I spoke, and I also spoke with Rich Robinson for that, and we talked about Rich and Marc getting back together, how they were a good combo, and we also dug into some kind of cool, maybe lesser talked about stuff from Marc's awesome career.
Well, welcome, Marc. So let me first say Happy New Year before we talk about your new release and anything else.
Right. Well, thank you. Happy New Year to you. Yeah. It was a weird one for sure.
How did you spend most of your year? Was it prepping for this year, all the release? Like what were Marc Ford's plans going into 2020?
Yeah, to not plan. That was my plan. Maybe the biggest struggle that I saw a lot of people have to deal with, which maybe I haven't. Everyone's on my schedule now. You know what I mean? I watch so many people spin around thinking, I got to do this, I got to do that. It's like, well, no, you don't. It's like, why? Because, do you feel like you're just supposed to? You got to kind of figure out what you do when you're not doing what you do. Who are you when you're not doing your thing? And I started to learn to surf, and my daughter started to learn the boogie board. And so, I'm gone most summers. So I got to not be on tour and get out in the water and just do simple stuff. And then, you know, this live thing sort of fell on my lap. The sort of the recording of this. And as I sort of farmed it out to a couple people to test mix the songs, I just sort of like, man, I could do that, I think, you know, rather than spend all the money on having a mixer mix 21 songs. I thought, like, well, I'll just buy, you know, get some gear. I updated some home stuff and got into that Apollo gear. And anyway, mixed it myself, and we have video for it. And so to answer your question, just learning how to not have plans is kind of a struggle.
Yeah, I'm like that too. When you have a day off, when you're always so busy, it's like, what do I do now? You're kind of get jittery, which I'm glad now that, yes, it's not because it's a new year. It's not like the pandemic and coronavirus are wiped away. We still have to deal with things, but maybe we can plan a little differently, a little better. So can you tell us the plan about Live in Germany? This was recorded back in 2017. Can you give us the details about, because there's a live stream to go with this, right?
Yeah. What happened was, you know, I may be fuzzy on the exact dates, but we had some dates in, well, I had a tour of Europe planned. And then during that tour, there were some Magpie dates that were starting that festival. Well, one festival I had to fly to. I was in the middle of this tour. So this was a month-long tour of Neptune Blues Club. Although I couldn't bring the whole Neptune Blues Club, it was me and Mike Malone who sang some of the other songs in that band. And so the two of us went and picked up a couple of rhythm sections from Bristol through a friend of mine. And we met in Belgium, and first time we played together was soundcheck. And, you know, 4 or 5 days into this, every night later, 5 nights later, we were in this club, you know, and they have the facility to record and to film, multi-camera and all this stuff. And I'm not really thinking like, oh, what an opportunity to record what's happening right now, because this is perfect and I really want to capture this. It was just like, well, that's great. I'm not going to do anything with it. It was just another night trying to get this brand new band functioning and having fun, you know. So that's why 3 years later, I guess the club goes down, and the guy kept in contact with my son, and he just said, look, I've got this audio and this video. Do you want it? You know, so the hard drive came, and here we are. And so I really had no plans, because I mean, you know, I'm keeping in touch with people, with John and Sven, and we're passing ideas together, and we have plans for someday when we can, let's get together. And, you know, so music is being formed, and I got to get into recording at home again a little bit, and, you know, just learning how to coast, really, you know, which is part of making music anyway. You sit around and daydream my whole life, you know, and you spend the entire day learning how to sit in one place on a bus or in a plane or in a room. I mean, it's not any different to me.
Right on.
It's everybody else around, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
right on.
I mean, I'm getting a little antsy. I'm getting a little antsy because I want to play, you know, but
I guess it's good you're coming back with, I mean, I know it's not you technically playing live, but it has that live feel. I don't know if that's like pseudo playing in a way,
right.
A way of getting a little bit of that antsiness.
I mean, I could run with the rumors too, because people are asking me, you know, or telling me, have a good trip to Germany. And I'm like, no. no. So, you know, it could go a lot of ways.
And a big part of what people love about Marc's guitar playing and his music is what he does on stage in a live context. And Marc, I thought it was cool. You mentioned during the pandemic you picked up surfing, and I was curious. Also during last year, like, was there anything? You have kind of a sort of a unique style that people love, and it's expressive and powerful and nuanced. But I'm wondering if during the pandemic, did you add or work on any new things on your guitar playing or listen to new people? I remember one time, I think for the LA Weekly thing, this didn't make it in there, but I asked you who are some guitar players people might not expect you like, and you told me Richie Blackmore and I think Richard Thompson. So I'm curious, any new things you messed around with on guitar while you were kind of waiting to get back to doing what you do, man?
Yeah. I mean, I do dumb things with myself to keep myself interested and pay attention and not rely on like habits, I'll just not play the guitar at all for a long time, for a while, because I spent way too much time running to that thing and hiding, as a kid and growing up and all the years, like that thing has kept me so much company when it had nothing to do with guitar playing. So when I go to it, I want to be intentional. I don't want to just go hide and disappear from something. And so I'll just put it down. And then all of the sort of habits that happen in your muscles drop away. When you pick it up again, you're a little clumsy and you really have to pay attention and you have to be intentional about what you're doing. And I dig that because that stumbling makes me, first of all, the old licks that you just run through while you're watching TV, get out of the way. You know what I mean? Like that's, if it becomes rote like that, I don't want to be there. Like it's got to be present, I guess is what I'm saying. So, I put bigger strings on my guitar. I raised the action higher. I started listening to Michael Bloomfield and Roy Buchanan and just guys that plug straight in, and I made it more difficult for myself. So I really had to, make my choices, and then on the other hand, for the reunion of the Crows in 05, I went to super light, like 8, because I didn't want to rely on muscle memory. Because once I got there and started, I realized how much was involved. Like I didn't really have to relearn any of the songs. My body knew them, So I changed the guitar's whole touch and feel so that I really had to be present with what I was doing. I couldn't just be phoning it in. You know what I mean? So I'll do that to myself just to keep it interesting to me. I'm not gonna get in and learn jazz. And I'm not really going to get too far into any kind of methodology. It's all more about the conversation to me. And the conversation is interesting enough to me with a few words rather than have to use all 12 of them. You know what I mean?
Marc, also that, speaking of conversations, I'm curious, a good live band, you hear a conversation on stage sometimes between the players individually or collectively as a band. What's one of your favorite moments from the Live in Germany album? And also connecting back to the roots a little bit, what's your favorite of the kind of the classic Crow studio album? Or a favorite track off those, whether it's Southern Harmony or More Three Snakes or even the unreleased stuff like Tall in the Band. But a favorite moment from Live in Germany and a favorite moment from classic Crows, Marc Ford stuff.
Oh, man. Favorites are tough. Because if you ask me tomorrow, I might have a different answer. But
it's all right. What's your favorite today? That's okay.
Yeah, today, the thing I was surprised and really dug about the recording was remembering how much fun I had playing with those guys. They were right on me, and I could really test them if they were listening or not. And when they are like that, it'll really frees me up to have fun. And so, like, the jams to me were fun to listen to. I've heard the songs and we know them, and yeah, we make mistakes, but the engine was working, and it's like there's some jams in there that are really intense, and really fun for me to listen to, and otherwise I wouldn't put it on at all. You know what I mean? I had to listen to it to mix it, and I probably won't ever hear that record again. And I wouldn't have listened to it if I didn't have to make it a record. I just don't listen to myself for things. But when I need to, I really dug the jams. You know what I mean? I dug that it made me want to play really bad listening to it. And with the Crows, you know, generally, I got asked this the other day, and like, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to like a lot of different parts of the music and things, but my most memorable, honestly, was going into Southern Harmony and stepping into this, first of all, functioning cool band with a bunch of like, you know, new friends and how exciting everything was, because here I was getting up into the next level, right? And I had been working towards it on my own. Mm-hmm. But my thing wouldn't bust for some reason, and they were having a problem. So, you know, it was a good call to get. And when we were making the record, I mean, it was just a couple of days in Chris's garage. We were jamming through these new songs, and they weren't even finished when we went in the studio. We were just plowing through them, and we knew it was working. We knew how exciting it was. You know, it was one of those things you don't want to talk about it too much in case you spook it away. You know, and
like a no-hitter, like a perfect game.
Yeah, you know, yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, this is good. You know, this is good, right? Wink, wink. Oh yeah, it is. Like, let's, like, you know, don't spook it. Like, and it was fast and intense, and it was all winks and nods, and it was, you know, and at the same time, we're scared to death getting found out because we're just trying to copy our heroes. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a mixed bag, you know, but it was so exciting because it was something new that we hadn't heard before. And we thought, holy shit, maybe we arrived. Maybe we're getting this, you know what I mean? And it was a proud moment for everybody.
Right on.
It was exciting to listen to, for sure.
I want to read some comments from listeners because people were very excited that you were coming on today, Mark. This is from Martina from San Francisco. Love Mark. Okay. He's amazing and, in my opinion, criminally underrated. A lot of the comments were like that. This is from Matt from Poland, one of the best of all time, period. This was also, you know, curious. This is from Nick, fantastic guitarist. The Black Crowes were better after Mark Ford joined. Didn't know he played on the Juju Hounds album. Thought it was uncredited. So if I can ask you about that, we could deviate a little bit about that. Can you talk about your time as we talk about guitarists and guitar heroes of people? Izzy Stradlin is a guitar hero of many. Can you talk about working with him and on the Juju Hounds?
Yeah, I mean, I went in to do a track, do a guitar overdub. I mean, we were all doing a little bit of hanging out in those days. You know, my band Braintree rehearsed next door to Guns N' Roses at Mace, and we were hearing each other every day, kind of, you know, bumping into each other. Yeah, essentially, they called me in to do an overdub, and at the time, I was new to joining up with the Crows, and so I think they were trying to keep it pretty special that I wasn't out for hire, that I was now part of the Black Crowes, you know what I mean? So, and plus there gets to be legal baloney with contracts and all that stuff. So basically I just said, look, just leave my name off of it. I don't want to deal with it right now. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, and that's how it went.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about,
I mean,
I'm sorry, continue.
It was a simple, just, hey, will you come in? He was looking for people to put solos on things, you know. Ron Wood was just there, and I came in after him. He was there a couple hours earlier or something, and I used the same amp that he used. You know, all right, there's a bassman. It was good enough for Ron. He says, I'll plug it in. So.
I mean, that's just got to be flattering because you're talking about, and again, now in 2021, you know, how people still look up to you and want to hear hear Mark Ford. But at that time, when you're kind of an unknown, I mean, you're still making a name for yourself. So, and I don't want to ask the question you've been asked a million times, because we were just talking about that time period when you joined the Crows and you could have had an opportunity to join Guns N' Roses. But I guess as we touched on, what was last year to you, year of reflection, year of spending time with your family, does that moment in your life, does that pop into your head? And do you ever play that game of, it could be a dangerous game, but the game of what if? Do you ever play that game?
Oh, no.
You don't ever play that game? Okay.
That's dangerous territory.
Okay.
That's fantasy land, man. Before it, like, if you're looking back or forward, it's just dangerous.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, listen. I mean, like, you described the perfect situation. Like I think I touched on earlier, is where, in my mind, to be able to walk into that room, I had to first of all think that I was a bad motherfucker and I deserved to be there. But really, I don't know if I truly believed it. Like, I had to keep going, like, holy shit, man. Ron Wood, great. Ron Wood just played. You know what I mean? Like, oh no. Well, here's the day I get found out. You know what I mean? It's like, there's always that doubt with an artist that, you're not really doing it, because you know how far away you are from it. And you're just sure everyone else sees how far away you are from it.
It's very relatable.
Speaking of, thinking backwards or forwards or whatever, as a guitarist, Mark, obviously to get at the skill level that you have and the ability to express yourself the way you can on the guitar, you've had to have spent a lot of time playing. But I was wondering, how much of your playing now is instinctual and how much of it is kind of plotted out or composed in terms of more, the interludes and soloing or whatever. And maybe how was it maybe earlier in your career when, even going back to Burning Tree, even before Crows and, guesting with Juju Hounds. Is it more instinctual for you now, or you find yourself being more compositional now? And when you were starting, how was that as a guy who expresses himself on the guitar like that?
Right. Well, the simple answer is that I learned to listen more. Or before, I was out to show you what I was going to do. And I was out to, make things happen and to prove to you what was going on. Now, I'll take every situation and be the first one to admit if this situation does not need me. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just about getting older. You know what I mean? You learn the quickest way to a conversation is to stick with the point. And you know what I mean? Listen to what other people are saying, so what you have to say is relevant. And maybe you don't need to say anything at all. Maybe you just need to enforce someone else's thoughts. You know what I mean? Maybe. So before it was just about, I'm going to make it to the top of the mountain. Who's going with me? And now it's much more about relationship and I mean, music is heavy, and the more I know, the more I don't know. And I've been able to get away with the same pentatonic scale throughout the whole thing. I don't need any more than that, because there's so much more to explore other than the actual words of the language. I understand the flow of language better now. I understand, I think it is. I was always instinctual, but back then I only had a few tools and I used them as hard as I could. And now I have way more tools. And so subtlety is, the painting just gets deeper in rather than wide. I don't know how to explain it, really.
No, it's well said. That's something that I've heard actually from a few people, from a vocal coach and my therapist, about expanding your crayon box or your toolbox. You may not know how to use these things yet, but you learn as you
Right.
go older. So no, I totally get what you're saying. It's extremely relatable. So
Well, the heavy thing with, I was saying this to somebody else the other day, was that we were learning how to use all these new tools in front of everybody, like on 10. You know what I mean? Like when I joined the Crows and Rich goes, "Oh, you play slide, right?" And I knew all I knew how to do was go. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I can do that. Yeah, I play slide.
right.
But then I had to go do it. And then we started playing with guys like the Allman Brothers. And then I really had to figure it out, because
it's like your resume. You kind of expand, elaborate on the truth or expand on the truth,
right.
and you just figure it out on the job.
Yeah. I mean, I knew the job. I knew what job had to be done. Could I do the job on that slide? What they needed done? Yeah, that was the truth. You know what I mean? I picked up a beer bottle before, or a lighter. I mean, everybody had done that. Now I know much more about it. I'm still using the same notes, but we were out there hanging it out with 2 Marshall stacks in front of however many thousands of people, opening up for the Rolling Stones, and going like, "What do you got, dude?" And then we were using all of it, man.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And just, it was exciting. It was always right on the edge. Just absolute disaster.
How many people were at the Germany show that we're going to experience?
At least a couple dozen. It was a tiny club. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It was a little tiny club tour in a van that we did, and then it was just 4 of us and the tour manager guy in the gear. So,
I mean, that's going to be perfect to translate to a streaming audience, something that intimate. And I
think so.
I forget. I want to make sure people know to text Marc Ford to 31996 if you want to get on a VIP list and be entered to win a $50 gift card to the merch store. And so how is it, it's going to be released on Bandcamp, and people I guess, pre-order the Live in Germany, but how does the live stream work? Do we go to your website? How does that, how do we sign up for that?
I think that by texting, you get all that information.
Okay, cool.
There's a service that is going to stream it on the 15th or the 14th.
Nooncourse.com on the 14th is streaming.
There you go. And so what's going to happen is that when it's all shown that first time, there's a chat room, everybody can talk to each other and kind of hang out during that. So, but if you bought that, you can watch it after that. It's kind of yours digitally to watch anytime you want.
That's cool. And you're right. In addition to that gift card, you get all the information by texting Marc Ford to 31996. That's cool.
Good,
wow.
yeah.
I mean, what a world we live in. Who would have thought?
The good thing about all of this stuff is that the monsters are getting found out, and maybe we can get music back to the people and the people who are making it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I dig about this Bandcamp and everything. It's like, your money, where your money's going to.
True.
And we're all keeping it up front, and there's no hidden agenda or baloney. And, you know what I mean? It's like, so it's a wild new world out there. But, and it's only been a minute since we have recorded music. So, like, literally in the span of time, a musician's job was always to play the music there and then, wherever he was, and then take it to the next group of people and play it. And it was in the present time, in the moment, beautiful, magical thing that only happens when it happens.
Yeah.
And so that will always be our job.
Speaking of your job, Marc, and bringing joy to people in person, playing music live. People will be excited to hear the Live in Germany record. They've enjoyed, your stuff from your solo career. My favorite's probably the Wired and Weary album. I've worn that one out. And of course the Crow stuff, and even, Burning Tree. I think you guys made that record for Epic, if I'm remembering right. But, it's a guy who, live, showing people a good time live, but also, a big part of making your living is live. What is it? What's your gut tell you about live music coming back in 2021? What's kind of, without giving away keys to the kingdom, what are kind of your plans to phase that back in? Just because, we love recorded music, but we know the economics of artists, most, 99% of them, it's from playing live. Can you talk about where your gut tells you how things are going to kind of come back in 21, and maybe what are kind of your hopes to do this year as a performing artist?
Well, right now it looks like there are a few ways to do it, and it looks like those ways are even more expensive than it is, because it's a lot of traveling to get a lot of gear in one place, and you got one gig, and then maybe one in a couple days or something. It's just the only way to make a living on the road is to play every single day. And the only way to be at your best, like comedians, you got to play every day. There's no way to be a weekend warrior and be at your best. It's absolutely no way, because there's just this like ninja level that you have to get to in your head. And that's the only way to get to do it, is stand on the edge of the cliff and let the wind blow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, music, from my experience, my tiny little bit of experience from playing around the neighborhood, is that people are dying for live music. And and they didn't know how much they wanted it until now, which is beautiful. Now, on the other hand, how are we going to do it? I don't know. So I can't make any plans until people start figuring that out.
Are there any plans as far as just music in general, recording new music? What are your plans? Anything you could talk about in addition to this Live in Germany coming out?
I don't have any specific plans. I'm a couple of guys from Magpie, John and Sven, and I have been keeping in touch, and there's some exciting stuff going on there. And so we're talking about making some music when it's all possible. And there's so many great people and that I'd love to make music with. I'm not really that interested always in running my own band and being the guy in charge. I really enjoy, again, the conversation, and who knows what's going to turn up.
Anyone on your dream list of who you want to play with?
I would love to play with Questlove.
Okay, that's cool.
Just jam. I don't care if anything else goes on. Just really have a play. You know what I mean? It's like that's it. Like, I'm still a musician and a super big fan, and I want to get in as many conversations as I can with people and learn, because every time, the only way I'm going to learn is get in a room with somebody better than me, or at least know something I don't know. Otherwise, you're teaching all the time, and that gets to be a drag after a while.
Speaking of work, Southern Harmony turns, Jesus Christ, how, so I guess it turns 30 next year. 30 next year. If there was something put out to you to do a Southern Harmony 30 tour with Chris and Rich and, under the Crow's name and whoever else was involved, is that something you would be interested in or would consider for 22?
well, we're in what if land again. And we know how
Dangerous
Gotcha.
territory.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean,
Let me ask you this. Would you be interested in writing a book? And have you read Steve Gorman's book?
No and no.
Okay, fair enough. That's why we're
Also,
we're glad Mark does
also-
podcasts. You know, he's not going to write a book.
I mean, look, I don't have an end, man. You know, I mean, it's disappointing to say, but I don't know what's going on or what's gonna go on. And I mean, sorry,
Hey, man, Mark talks with his guitar and his music. He doesn't need to write a book.
But I know
so.
I know what you're saying
Well-
by not saying anything, and it's so everything you said is so relatable. Even though I have no idea what it's like to be in a rock band, let alone a successful rock band, and have a career. You know, I went into radio because I can't. You know, I can barely play a Guitar Hero, but your philosophy towards everything is just again so relatable, and because you're salt of the earth, you're down to earth. You're just like I don't want to write a book. I just want to keep making music. I want to play music. You want to play with people who you admire. You want to be challenged. These are things we all can relate to one way or another, I think.
Yeah, I'm not interested in cruising through memory lane. It doesn't really do me any good. I mean, I'll tell a story once in a while if it comes up in a conversation or if I'm asked, but I don't sit around. I'm practicing the here and now, not the yesterday and when. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate you going a little bit, playing some, having some fun with yesterday for us. But of course, we're talking about.
I mean,
the today.
Yeah,
and
I'm
the
not
future.
averse to it, and it's all cool. I'm just trying to explain, I guess,
I
think a book. It's like I don't think I'm anywhere near the really interesting parts yet, and
Cool.
I don't think I've read enough books to be able to write one, to be honest with you. And
I like that.
And I don't really care much about getting involved in this whole thing of what Steve said and what he didn't say. I was there. I know my version of it. And, you know, I mean, it's just,
Right on.
you know, I'm looking for the new experience, and is all, you know.
Right on.
Maybe one day. May ask me tomorrow.
Okay. Until next time, Mark. I mean, I'm looking forward to live in Germany because I wasn't there. I wasn't in Germany, and it's important so people to realize that you're not actually going to Germany and you're playing it safe. It says the date underneath it, May 16th, 2007. That was the date you recorded, and I think it's going to be an honest performance because that's how you've been in this conversation, and you said how you didn't anticipate this to be released in this way. I mean, how could you? I mean, no one knew what 2020 was going to bring, and all the silver linings of how to get creative now, I think, are finally coming out. So just thank you for your time, Mark. Your next project, please come back on the show, and I would love to talk to you again, as I'm sure Matt would, to see what you have going on in the future, because you have many more chapters to write. So I can't wait to read them, so to speak.
Right on. Well,
To hear him at least. Hey, Mark, appreciate the conversation, and man, thanks for your music. It's brought me a lot of joy and a lot of other people, and we're looking forward to hearing the new live album. And glad to hear you're doing well, man.
well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and anytime. I mean, the journey goes on, and I hope to see everybody out there real soon playing.
Right on. Same here.
We'll look forward to that. Take care, Mark. Thanks so much, man.
Happy New Year.
All right, you too.
What a cool dude. I know recently he did the podcast Couch Riffs with our buddy Mike Squires from Duff McKagan's Loaded, who also does the theme song for this podcast. So they're able to, this is where you came in, Matt, you helped me out, because they're able to geek out about guitar. And you could tell by some of just the comments that I read to Mark, I have a lot of guitarist listeners who would like to geek out with him. So I appreciate you helping me out with that portion of the conversation, talking about guitars and his tone and his approach. And, so we got better answers from Mark because you were the co-host today. So thank you.
Oh, man, appreciate you having me. And I think I said this on Twitter, but for Black Crowes fans, Marc Ford is a big deal. It's like there's, Kristen Rich wrote some really good songs during that time, but his playing matched the ferocity and the ability of those songs to take it to another level. He is very similar to what Mick Taylor did when he joined the Stones. So Marc Ford's a special guitar player and a cool, laid-back guy, huh?
Yeah. I wasn't sure because, again, you've interviewed him. And it was for print. And I know sometimes those could be different in their approach because they know they're not being recorded and the way they come off. So I just you just never know how they're going to come off until you hit record. And just like his guitar playing, it's just very honest and there's like a humbleness to it. Like you're impressed by it, but there's like there's a kind of like an approachability to it. And there's which was just great.
And also kind of like this zen, like, Marc's from California, but he has kind of this laid back kind of California zen without being pretentious to his humbleness that you talked about. Like, and I know he says he wouldn't be into writing a book, but he has a cool way of looking at things and explaining them. And I don't know.
Yeah, but, I don't buy that when people say they don't want to write a book because they're not, Lindsay Lohan or something like that. I look at somebody who I had on the show recently, and that's Brian Wheat from Tesla.
Yeah.
I mean, is he the biggest rock star in the world? Yeah. If you know Tesla, if you're like, into that genre, you might know who he is, but is his fan base going to sell enough books to make it worthwhile? But it's his story, that makes it worthwhile. So I think that's what this podcast is about. And I know you know that, Matt. I'm not getting Slash and Axl on here, but we're getting all these other people with great stories that, are still in the ballpark of the subject you want to read about. It's just not from the most famous people. It doesn't take away from the story. So I'm with you. People would want to hear Marc's tale. And if he chooses to tell it on the podcast, piece by piece, so be it. We'll do it that way.
Amen. And for the record, I need to read that Tesla book. Cool band, and I'm sure that's. And speaking of Brian Wheat coming on your show, man, you have like a awesome 2020 list of guests. I mean, it's saying awesome in 2020 in the same sentence doesn't feel right. But dude, you crushed it last year. What's one or two that stood out to you that were really that you were really fond of, or you thought were particularly stand out or special from last year?
Well, thanks just for asking and being a part of a lot of those episodes. We put out this best of podcast, and I say we because I always want to credit iOS Life, TMK Studio. They're the ones that did that Izzy Stradlin fan-made documentary that sometimes is on the internet and sometimes isn't. And they created he created my new logo. I mean, it's just a dude from Ireland who I met just from doing this podcast. So he put up a best of, and you're included in that best of with the episode we did with Doug Goldstein talking about the spaghetti incident, that was
fun, man. Doug's great.
That was fun. And I will say before it gets lost, and we'll correct ourselves, albeit this late. I don't want to do this to you, Matt, because he's such a nice guy, and this is why I didn't want to bother correcting him at the time. We were talking about spaghetti incident, and we made that reference to Give Me Some Reggae, and I forgot what song you said, but it wasn't Knocking on Heaven's Door, and I knew it was Knocking on Heaven's Door, and I didn't correct you, and I got a few comments about that. I'm like, all right.
I don't remember that. Yeah, we were talking about Live Era, and Give Me Some Reggae stuff.
Oh, yeah, the Live Era. Right. That conversation went a lot of different ways. Maybe, wait, was it because they did a bunch of episodes with Doug Goldstein. Was it the Live Era episode you were on, or the spaghetti incident?
I was on the Era episode.
All right.
Had Doug also doing a spaghetti one, if I remember right.
All right. Goes to show you where my brain is at. All I know is I've enjoyed every episode I've done with Doug Goldstein and Matt Wake. But
hey, I'll take that.
But I mean, in addition to that, the fact that I got to speak with Matt Sorum just blows my mind. That I had Matt's on the podcast. I had Gilby Clark on the podcast. I mean, it's very hard to get into the GNR inner circle. And yeah, they're not part of the band anymore, but they're still I don't know, they're close enough where if you reach in too quick, you can get burned. It's this weird GNR world, but Andy Morahan, who directed, November Rain, a bunch of other GNR videos, was amazing. Frank, that was the inner circle. So a lot of the GNR, like really specific ones, meant a lot just because, yeah, it's a Guns N' Roses podcast. But knowing that, it's also very hard, given that we don't know what's going on with the band. It's just difficult. But I guess also on a personal level, Harry Shearer, me being a big Simpsons guy, that's kind of like a dream. Being able to make up for my Dave Mustaine interview, the one that happened, I think, the year prior, where I accidentally said I got nervous and I got stuck in the word idolized. And I said, do you idolize Slash instead of saying like admire or, do you learn from each other? I was trying to think of something, a clever way or a unique way to segue into how guitar players of that ilk, when they're also friends, like how do you look at each other's playing, and it came out. Do you remember this at all? It was like, Dave was like, he was like, did you just say, do I admire Slash? And oh my God, I was like, shit myself right there. But he doesn't remember any of that. So when he came around in September, he was just awesome. Yeah. And I brought that up to him. So I was able to kind of get that awkward monkey off my back. But that was great. Rob Halford was great. I mean, Robbie Krieger. Just amazing. And what I'm going to do more of, and maybe you'll give me some ideas now. I want to do more of fan interviews, fan experiences that, people who are at epic shows. So maybe we do one about that Alabama show that you've written about, but that we've had, we had some fans on who were at the Montreal riot. We revisited the St. Louis riot with a member of the radio station down there. We just, we wrapped up the year with the Philadelphia riot. I definitely do want to do a Vancouver riot with some fans. So they don't always have to be all riots, but I want to. Those episodes are fun, and I think it's fun for me. It's fun for the listeners to be involved in an episode. It's fun for the listeners just who listen to the episode, who share those experiences. So before we get out of here, any ideas? I guess as far as like what GNR shows we could talk about in the future and get perspectives on.
First of all, I think that's a cool thing to mix in because it's a form of different way of storytelling, and it adds a texture and color to your podcast. What about finding people who were at the Ritz show that was on MTV in '88?
Oh, that's true.
That might be a good one. That kind of comes to mind, or geez, GNR has. You know him as probably better than I do. Just all these kind of legendary or epic or tragic or pivotal shows. So, but the Ritz is one that was, to me I think it has a lot of reach because a lot of people watched that one at home and have seen it on YouTube now. They watched it at home at the time on MTV, and if you could find people that were there. And I'm not sure if Doug was the representation at that time, or if Alan Niven was, or just
I think a lot of Alan, people. But I could be wrong because the reason I want to say it was Alan, just because it's at the same time as the Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, and they were supposed to be the last band in there. When we had Penelope Spheris on, the director of that, and Wayne's World on. And
that was fun. I was on with that one with you.
Yeah, look at you. God, it goes to show you, I remember nothing. If I didn't have this, I'm not even doing this podcast to talk about Guns N' Roses. I'm doing it so I can document my life because I remember nothing. It's clear. Now it's coming back to me, obviously. But it's also, I rehash because we're getting new listeners all the time. But let me just say 88's the obvious one. That's a great idea. And it's also making me think of, I got to figure out the guy who gave Axl a fist bump or a high five at the 2002 VMAs. I got to find that dude. I got to find that dude. But right on. But this was fun, Matt. I'm glad that my first episode of the year that you were a part of it, and I know it's not going to be the last. You're kind of my journalism expert to go to. Obviously, if I get anybody on Black Crows, I know who I'm going to. What can we expect from you actually this year?
Yeah. Well, I've at the end of 2020, I wrote a couple of things. My first couple of things for Spin one was on the movie Dazed and Confused. They had this oral history that came out, and I talked to Wiley Wiggins, who played Mitch Kramer on that, and the author who wrote the book. It's a kick-ass book. All right. If you haven't read it, and also wrote something on whether or not bands, how much, do bands benefit financially from getting in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not mega bands, but so something I'm working on right now, Brando, is something that is related to the music on the popular Netflix stream Cobra Kai. So that's probably.
God, are you really?
Oh. So that hopefully it'll be percolating soon, and a couple of other things I'm not quite ready to talk about, but
okay.
Man, I think 2021 is going to be a really good year. I think not a really good. It's going to feel like a really good year. I think I'm expecting some good music stories to be told, and I think whether it's kind of looking back or new stuff arising, and I have a feeling like Rock's. There are certain things that I think Rock's going to have a solid year in 2021, a better one than it's had in a while.
Yeah, I feel like there's been something brewing, and hopefully Guns N' Roses is a part of that. But yeah. I got to say, you and I have to talk off the air about Cobra Kai, because we're going to extend this episode for another hour if we start talking about Cobra Kai right now.
Yeah.
I just finished season 3. Oh, it's so good. So thank you, Matt, and we'll talk again soon.
My pleasure. Brando, thanks for having me, man. Enjoyed it as always, and hope you have a great year.
Thanks, Matt. So that does it for this episode, the first episode of the AFD show of the new year, 2021. What is this year going to bring? I have no idea. Just reflecting on the year that was, I'm just amazed of where this podcast has gone over the, 4 years we've been doing it. So I think we've yet to really hit the heights what we are capable of. And I say we, talking to you, the bad apple, the AFD show listener. Thanks to you, we're going to have another great year of Appetite for Distortion. If you are late to give it a Christmas gift, don't forget you can get an official Appetite for Distortion t-shirt, or I think the mug, or tote bag, or hoodies, whatever. Redbubble. They put my logo on a bunch of cool stuff. So if you look for Appetite for Distortion on Redbubble, you can get some AFD swag, as they say. In the meanwhile, I should say, between episodes, conversation continues on social media: Facebook.com/The AFD Show, Twitter @The AFD Show, Instagram Appetite for Distortion, and don't forget to follow and subscribe on YouTube. So when will you hear the next episode of Appetite for Distortion? Well, in the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, you'll see it, I don't know if soon is the word.
Thanks to the lame ass security, I'm going home.